Welcome to the first edition of the BRSN Insider here on the campus of Benedictine College. Josh Pound, now joined by the head coach of the Raven volleyball team here on campus, Erin Cooper. And Coach, a big road win for your team last night, traveling down to Springfield and knocking off not a nationally ranked opponent, but a nationally rated opponent in the Evangel Crusaders.
Yes, it was a great game, a great atmosphere to play in. Evangel had loud people in the stands, and it was a fun atmosphere to play in.
So you come out and you win it in 5. Now you're 2-2 in conference. Both of your 2 wins have been in 5 games. Just take us back through the ups and downs of that match last night. A very evenly match. What ended up being the difference, you think, in the final outcome?
Yeah, so we started out not quite in ourselves. A couple individual players just wasn't themselves on the court, and they looked at me and said, "I'm okay." And there is that sense of, I can push through this. And I haven't seen that grit in a lot of my players prior to last night, which gave them the first set where we only scored 16. The second set we came out ablazing and we regained confidence. We worked through our adversity and took the second set and the third. We almost had the fourth.
We often, all the attention goes to the hitters. But really, that's where the points are scored the majority of the time. But we talked about before we got on today that really that wasn't necessarily how you won last night. Just
Sure.
take us back through that.
So a lot of it comes through ball control first. You know, when our ball control is on, we're able to produce points and keep balls in play a little bit more. One of the determining factors for last night's game was the fact that we had less errors than we have had in the past, and we're keeping balls in play a lot more, and it doesn't really matter how the ball hits the floor as long as the ball hits the floor on their side of the net. And so that's something that we've been really working on, as well as working through adversity and sticking together as a team.
And obviously, you're always hope to start hitting your stride as you hit in the conference season. Take us back. That was quite the road swing to start the year off. Was that just the nature of the way the season schedule played out this year, or was there anything you maybe looking back would have liked to have changed, or maybe to try to sneak in a non-conference home game earlier in the year?
Sure. No, I think that it was just, we kind of go in these rotations, and this was our 4th year, and that's kind of the way the nature of the beast fell this year. We would always like to have a home game earlier in the season, but it didn't work out that way. We had to return a couple road games that we've had in the past, so that's how it worked out this year, unfortunately.
And we talk about conference. I think something that maybe has gotten lost in the last couple years is conference schedule now is not just either at somebody's place or at home against somebody. Now you've got a home and home with your division, and then you've got either a road or home game against the other division, so that's giving you more conference games. Just talk about the grind now that maybe is conference because of that.
Yeah, it is. You know, we didn't get home until 1:30 last night, and so there's grind alone in that with the lack of sleep. But the girls really understand what it takes. They do a great job of prior to leaving, getting their homework done, and really being able to focus completely on volleyball once we step on that bus. But it is a grind, and you know, every game counts. Now that especially when we play the North, that game counts the way we are doing our scheduling for the conference tournament. So those road games with the North, every single game counts because there's only one, and we have to come in and prove ourselves.
So as you start looking forward, we have Culver Stockton coming up here for Family Weekend. What kind of team are they going to bring into the Nolan Gymnasium?
I think they can be sneaky. Their record is deceiving. They are taking games and sets off of some pretty decent teams. They have been at the bottom of our conference for the past 2 years, but Daniel's coming in and making his changes with his kids now. And, you know, I'm not quite sure what to expect, you know, as far as play. I do believe that we are a stronger team and that we should, you know, do our part and, you know, come what may.
So at this point in the year, is it less about maybe what your opponent's doing and more about honing in on fixing yourselves?
Yes. We talk about that all the time when we do scouting reports. It doesn't really matter who or what we write down on a scouting report. We still have to take care of what's going on our side of the net and believing in one another there.
And how do you feel the team finally here is? You have to make adjustments on the fly. Obviously, if one hitter is not, you know, they figured out that the block, they can't get it through the block. What's that mentality, or how does that work? Obviously, you've got 2 timeouts per set, so you have an opportunity to kind of change some strategies up there. But how often does that go, or are you guys so prepared to know that, hey, this is potentially something that happens, that the girls are just ready to know, hey, now we have to move on to this part of our game plan?
Sure. A lot of it has to do with our personnel. We have a great bench that is doing a good job of reading what's going on the court. So I do believe that when we have those timeouts, our people in like positions are communicating well with one another to what they see off the court to help them out that what's on the court. But other than that, it's just, again, continuing to build confidence and working through adversity with making some of those adjustments.
Well, thanks to Coach Cooper. Her Ravens back out here in the Nolan Gymnasium at noon on Saturday as they kick off a busy family weekend here of events on the campus of Benedictine College.
Shakespeare once said, "Some are born great, and some have greatness thrust upon them. The rest of us," he said, "have to achieve greatness." We know exactly what he means. Be not afraid of greatness. Achieve it. Benedictine College, where greatness begins.
Welcome back to this edition of the BRSN Insider. Josh Pound, and now joined by the head coach of the Raven football team, Coach Wilcox. Thanks for taking out the time of the day to come talk to us. And obviously your squad's out to a hot start this season, 3-0, maintained your ranking earlier in this week at number 2. Just talk about how the first 3 weeks of the season has gone so far.
Well, the first 3 weeks have gone about as good as we could hope for. Our guys came to camp in excellent shape, and with the kind of senior leadership that we have and the experience that we had returning, we were fairly confident we'd be able to replace those guys that graduated and some new guys get a chance. And so things came together quickly and came out of the chutes at Grayson University with a big score.
And obviously this year offensively, still the balanced offense that you guys have been able to put together over the last couple of years between passing and running, but it's really been the running game that's kind of taken, I guess, the headlines, so to speak, for this season. And just talk about what it means to have that two-headed running back there in Marquise Stewart and Charlie Neihart.
Well, as you said, we'd like to have a balanced offense, and we feel like we do, and that probably was more the case in our last game at Peru State. We're very efficient in the pass game, 13 out of 16 for over 200 yards, and we've got some talented athletes catching the ball, and of course Schaefer Sheets is returning player of the year in the conference. We've got a good one there, but the running game has been a great not surprise to us, because we felt confident in it, but I think it's been a surprise to others. Both Charlie and Marquise are averaging well over 100 yards a game, and I think we have 20 or 22 rushing touchdowns in 3 games, and leading the conference in rushing. And given that there are a couple of option teams in the conference, we feel like that's really an amazing stat. So a lot of offense, a lot of points, and the ability to run the football. And of course that always goes back to your offensive line and your tight end blocking, and so those guys have done a great job in sustaining blocks and giving you give Marquise or Charlie a little bit of a gap, and away they go.
Well, and defensively, after going against a very pass-heavy offense-oriented in Graceland, you've kind of gone back in time the last 2 weeks to more of the not necessarily the triple option, but the grinded-out ground game. Now you're going to get back in. Is it nice when you have to change that up to be able to play those kinds of styles of offenses back-to-back?
Well, there's some difficulty in doing that. You got to sort of switch gears defensively, and what we opted to do is our scrimmage this year was with Bethel College, who runs a triple option, and we felt like with games 2 against William Penn and Peru State option oriented teams, that would give our players a chance to practice in more of a game scenario. So that was helpful to us, and now we got to switch gears back and go against a spread offense. And what Clark University does is a lot like that had been done by that coaching staff when they were at Baker University. So we have some history of that, and now we have a couple games. But playing a new team entering the conference, there's always some unknowns.
And obviously that new team, Clark University, they've played 3 games, and in your time here at Benedictine, not a lot of new opponents that you've faced. What's it like to, obviously you mentioned that they run a similar style offense than what this staff did when they were at Baker as their offensive staff, but what's it like when you sit down and you've got 3 games to look at the history of a team rather than knowing that, hey, this coach has been there for 15, 20 years and this is what he's done?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit different, but what we've opted to do this week is as a staff, we met Sunday, we chose to focus more on us. We know that in Clark we're playing a young football team, a relatively inexperienced football team. In no way do we want to take them for granted or assume anything, but this seemed like a good occasion for us to go back to some basics in what we do and maybe put a little more emphasis on pass defense than we had the previous 2 weeks. But this has been a good week for us to reevaluate, relearn, and maybe factor some other additional guys into the schemes of what we're doing.
So as you've taken that opportunity to kind of evaluate the team through the first 3 weeks, what are some things that you'd like to see improved on as you continue into your what'll be your conference schedule here in a couple of weeks?
Well, most coaches are selfish in that regard. They want to get better at everything. We're not satisfied, but we're pleased with what we're doing. Especially, I'm really enthusiastic about what's happening defensively and how physical that group plays and how fast they get to the football and putting pressure on the other team's offense. So that's been a great thing for us. But do we want to get better? Yes. Offensively, we're scoring a lot of points. We've moved the ball very effectively, and we're happy with that as well. But do we want to get better? Yes. Probably where we've been a little bit shaky is in our kicking game, in the extra point part of it. We're 3 for 3 on field goals, but we've had some misses on extra points, and in some other games that would be more critical than it has been in these games. So that's something we need to get better at. The players are aware of it. It's both a protection and a kicking thing, but that's something that we can fix.
And then taking finally, we're not in conference play, but everybody plays a heart team in the opposite division until we get to the second half of the season. Looking at the way the conference is shaped up right now, Grandview is the only undefeated team on the north side remaining, and then you've got Evangel and Benedictine on the south side are undefeated. Is that a little bit of a surprise to you as far as where the schools are necessarily in their parts of the season, or has the schedule kind of played out like you guys thought it might?
Well, I think you never really know, but I think it's probably played out like we had anticipated, even with the national rankings. That's sort of the teams that were in that, to include Baker University, and their loss being to Grandview. So in a head-to-head, Grandview won that game. So really you've got those 4 teams that are most in position at this time, barely, not even to the midpoint of the year yet. Right. So there's a lot to go, and obviously some key games. And quite honestly, we've not played the strength of our schedule. I mean, we've played the weakest part of our schedule, to be very honest about it, as in hindsight. So we're going to have to amp it up and do more and anticipate that we're going to have to play against better football teams as we move through the season.
Well, the next step of the season starts at 1 o'clock on Saturday as Coach Wilcox and his squad will take on Clark University out on O'Malley Field. Thanks a lot, Coach. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Josh.
A wise man once said, "The world offers you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness." Discover what you were made for. Benedictine College, where greatness begins.
Welcome into this edition of the BRSN Insider. Josh Pound now joined by the leader of the athletic department here on the campus of Benedictine College, Athletic Director Charlie Gartenmayer. Coach, thanks for sitting down with us today. And we got family weekend coming up this weekend, so we're going to have a lot of people maybe coming for their first events on campus, but then also a lot of people coming back. It's going to be a little bit of a new look for some of our facilities when they come back in this year, as we've renovated some spots on O'Malley Field and then also down here to the complex on the south side of campus.
We're always excited to display what happens here at Benedictine College for our families, for our alumni, but more importantly for the student athletes who are competing on a daily basis. And I'm really proud of the support that we've gotten from those groups, from the alumni, from parents, from friends of the college. And so in this past summer, we've installed new turf on our football field. We've installed new turf on our soccer, lacrosse field. We're still in the process right now of talking about maybe changing the name that to sports complex or athletic complex. But one of the things that we did since we added lacrosse, we put lacrosse lines on there, and it really makes the field pop. Down at that same complex, we've added a scoreboard, video board that's just magnificent. There's not anybody and anyone else in the conference that has anything like that. We're just completing the seat project, and then we also did an install and changed all the lights in that facility. So we have a long list of things that we could continue to improve our facilities, but we have to do that for our student athletes because they're coming from some of the finest facilities at their high school level. And so it's incumbent upon us to continue to take the level up.
And then going back again, over the summer, we were awarded the inaugural Hart Commissioner's Cup. What does that mean for you as the athletic director here at Benedictine to be recognized like that as the department recognition comes out?
Well, we have outstanding coaches. One of the things that we talk about all the time within our program is that we don't use the words I or me. We use we and us. And it's a collaborative effort. We see the support of one team with another. We see the support of the student athletes throughout the student body to be at these events. And quite frankly, it was a somewhat of a miraculous year. I mean, the successes that we have in some of our sports, in football, in women's soccer, in our men's basketball team, and then the spring sports and women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, and my compliment is to our coaches, and then most importantly to our players who are putting in the dedication of, attending practices, going to traveling to games, competing in games, then taking care of their academic work. They want to be socially, emotionally developed, and then they're going to their spiritual development too. So I'm really, really proud of winning that first Commissioner's Cup.
Well, unlike the NACDA Cup that everybody gets probably the bigger recognition as far as being all athletic oriented, there is an academic component to the Commissioner's Cup as well, isn't there?
That's correct. And so we pride ourselves. I mean, our grade point average continues to be very, very high. We have 17 sports. Really, we have 19 sports, but we combine track and cross country and indoor, outdoor, and so on. But the thing I'm really proud of is the fact that out of the 17 sports, 12 of the 17 sports had a 3.0 or greater team average, and so the NAI recognizes those teams as NAI scholar teams. So we're very, very proud of that, and we challenged ourselves, as you're well aware of, in our opening meeting. We challenged our team, said, hey, why can't we get all 17 teams there? And the thing that's really a challenge and is the fact that we had 3 of those teams were like a 2.979 and 2.85, and so 985. So we'll get there this year.
Well, that segues perfectly to the final thing I wanted to talk to you about. For the 3rd straight year, the school has earned a gold medallion in the Champions of Character. It's right there in our mission statement as an athletic department that the Champions of Character and the 5 core values within that program mean enough to us as an institution to put those in there. To just talk about what that means for you as an athletic director.
Well, I think it fits very nicely into our mission statement here at Benedictine College, okay? So within a community of faith and scholarship, educating men and women. So with the NAI, you talk about integrity, you talk about respect, responsibility, sportsmanship, servant leadership. The thing that for me is the fact that our student athletes are doing it in the classroom, but they're also doing it with class, success, excellence, and professionalism. And that's what I want people, when they think of Benedictine College, I want them to think of those 4 values. And I think the other thing that's really important to me is the fact that what they're doing with their gifts and what these coaches are doing such a great job in the role modeling is the fact of, hey, take those gifts, lift somebody else up by utilizing your God-given talents.
All right, well, that's been Charlie Gartenmayer, Athletic Director here at Benedictine College. Coach, thanks for taking the time.
Good to see you. Thank you for a great job that Josh does each and every day. I really appreciate all his work.